Alright, so and welcome back to another Bitwig video, and on this one we are gonna do some sound design with the Polysynth. Now, I already released a tutorial or guide on the Polysynth. I'm gonna give you the link. Look at the card right there at the top. And on this one, we're gonna just, just practice just a little bit more. Now, let's see, let's just get to work. I'm gonna go right here, and on every instance, we have a Polysynth. And this is like the, what you get when you throw the Polysynth right here. So I'm gonna solo the bass. We're gonna start with the bass and do some playing. That's what we get. Okay, so let's just, start. First of all, I want to get a square bass. Now, of course, you can do a saw bass, or you can do a saw and then the square for the lows, and it's completely up to you. Now, every plugging, every patch that we do right here, the bass, the pluck, and the pad, is going to go to Patreon. Now, it's going on the free side of Patreon. You don't need to pay anything. I'm going to put it there. You can go. I'm going to give you a link. You can go and download the patch. I'm going to go create, save it as a patch, and you can download it and just, import it in on your session and just, pretty much see the same thing we are seeing right here. Let's begin. I'm going to go to the bass, and I want a square bass. So I'm going to go, and I'm going to go to some lows. I'm going to go to 16, and I'm going to use the second oscillator, and I'm going to go to 32. Now, one important thing is that since this is a bass, I don't want to use a Polysynth. I want to make it mono. So I'm going to go to mono, and I'm going to go to true because I like it. So, okay. So what else? Okay, again, I want a square bass. So I'm going to go right here, and notice that we have the sub, but we also have the shape. So if I go all the way down on the shape, we have a square. And if I play it, it sucks. But, we can make it better. Now, of course, I want some other lows. And right now, again, on this shape, I'm gonna get it. Now, this is the first one, and this is the other one. Now, what I want to do, I want a blend of both. Now, I want a little bit more of the lows. So I'm gonna go and just move it and get a little bit or more of the lows. Let me start from the beginning, and I'm gonna go and loop it. Now notice that the clip, this is what we get, and we are playing many notes right here, but we are not getting it. We are not getting it, and it's because of the ADSR. So I'm gonna need to change how this behaves and how the filter behaves. So I'm gonna go right here, and I'm gonna maybe do a little bit of attack. I'm gonna leave the decay right there. I'm going to do a little bit of sustain, which is part of the problem. And I have a Windows update. Oh my God, snooze. All right, so there we go. Now we are getting some transients, which is cool. Now, of course, it would be cool to use the filters. So I'm going to do, instead of the 2-pole, I'm going to go and do the 4-pole, which is a bit more aggressive. And I'm going to start filtering. Now, at some point, of course, we are going to get nothing. So we're going to use the envelope generator, which is this one, just to get some movement. As soon as I go up, we are start to get. Now we have a lot of resonance right now. I don't want that. I just want a little bit. Now everything I'm doing right now, I'm just doing it on the fly. So I don't know what we are gonna get. And what I show you at the beginning was the final result. Now I want to do a little bit of movement right here, and this is just not gonna cut it. So I want to do a little bit of attack. I'm gonna go and do that decay, a little bit of sustain. Maybe it's too short. And I'm gonna go and do a little bit of release. I kind of like that, but still sounds a little bit dull, right? Just a little bit dull. Now, one cool thing that you can do with the Polysynth, you can go and change the curve right here. If I go down, it's gonna make it shorter, much shorter. If I go the other way, it's exponential. So the curve is different. Now in this case, I'm gonna do a more linear, like it's a more kind of a traditional one. Now, of course, if you want a little bit more bite, you can go up on the decay, and you're gonna start to get more bite. Now it sounds cool, but it could sound better. So I'm gonna go and introduce a little bit of drive. Now, when you do a little bit of drive and you use plugins, which is, we're gonna do some processing, you're gonna need to lower the volume right here. Because if not, it's gonna start clip your plugins right here. Okay, it kind of sounds cool, but I want this vibe. Now it sounds good, but I want a little bit more. So since we are using mono, but we can still use unison, I'm gonna do 5 unison voices On the higher, we can do less if we want to do, but I'm just gonna do 5. Gonna do there, and we get just a bigger sound. Just a bigger sound. That's what we want in this case. Now, of course, you always need to be careful because whenever you make your bass bigger and bigger, sometimes it's just not gonna fit your track. So always you need, gonna need to check that it fits your track, because maybe the bass is too big and you just need something more mono. But in this case, since we are doing this alone, this sounds a little bit better. It already sounds like a bass. Okay, so with the feedback, it's kind of it's like soft clipping. So we can do a little bit of feedback, and notice that we get a bit more bottom end. Just get a little bit more lows, which is something I like. All right, so again, it sounds cool. Now, sometimes it's a good idea to bring a little bit of noise, just to bring a little bit of attack. So the thing is that right now we can really hear the noise. So this is not what I want. So I could use this envelope generators, but if I use this one, for example, it's going to be a little bit too long. And I want a sharper kind of a envelope. So I don't want that. I'm just going to go and remove it. And I'm going to bring my own envelope. Since we can on Bitwig, I'm going to bring an ADSR and I'm going to make it really short. I go there. I'm going to do a very small attack. No sustain, no decay, and no poly, because we are not in poly mode. We are in mono. And notice it. We have the shape right there. And I'm going to go and do a little bit of noise. Maybe something like there. And now the noise is, sitting in the background. It's not so present because it's just very short, but it's giving us a little bit of more push on the transients. And that's it, this sounds like a cool bass. This is very useful, or, usable. Now let's just make it better. I'm gonna go and bring some EQ. I'm gonna go and say EQ, and I'm gonna bring the EQ 5 because it's just, now let's just bring the EQ plus. Okay. So we're gonna do some EQing. We are gonna do some compression. So I'm gonna go and bring the compressor. Let me just stop the audio. First, I'm gonna go bring a compressor right here. What else? Well, we could do some chorus and we could do some reverb. Why not? Sometimes you don't want to use reverbs on a basis because, it depends on your track. But in this case, since we are soloing this, I just wanted to make sound a little bit better. I'm gonna click here. I'm gonna click here. I'm gonna click here. And I'm gonna start just with the EQ. All right, since this is a bass, I like it, but sometimes you get a lot of lows. And we are getting a lot of lows with the drive. So I'm gonna go and cut a little bit of the super lows. And I mean the super lows is between 0 and, well, not really 0, but 30 hertz, even 50, it's cool, but maybe it's a little bit too much. So I'm gonna go and leave it right there. It's just a tiny cut. Now, of course, right here, we get a kind of a build-up right here, which is fine. But sometimes you just want to cut it a little bit. In this case, I'm just gonna go and do a narrow shortcut. And since I'm cutting, I'm gonna boost a little bit of the lows. Now notice that since we are using the noise, we can really hear that noise. So I'm gonna go and cut a little bit of the highs because this is a bass, we don't need it. So I'm gonna do a gentile cut. We have a much better bass. And this is my opinion, mixing, it depends on the person that's mixing. I kind of like this. Now, the bass is cool. I would like to get a little bit more punch. And this is something that we can get with a compressor. So I'm gonna go with the compressor, and it's already kind of a, doing something. If I go to threshold, nothing. Notice that we are good in levels. If I go up on the gain right here, it's gonna start, going to the limit. So you need to be careful with that when you do plugins. I don't want to do that much. I just want to do a little bit. So I'm gonna go down to there. Now what I want to do, I want to enhance or just, kind of get more of the, a more transient peak. So I'm gonna go slow attack, fast release. And we're gonna start compressing. Notice how the sounds changes. Now there is another thing happening, which is it's increasing the volume. So always trying to match the volume. Gonna try to do the best we can. It's a bit more consistent. And again, it's completely up to you. I'm not doing a lot of compressions, just a tiny bit. Now it depends on the track, you maybe want to make your bass bigger. So of course, like this one, it's just gonna make it super big. But remember that the bass needs to be kind of a mono, so I'm gonna go and make it less wide. Now this plugin, it's a free plugin, of course, it adds volume, so I'm gonna go and drop the volume just a little bit. And it sounds cool, you know, it's just a nice bass. I'm gonna go to the reverb, I'm gonna do reverb. Of course, that's just not gonna fly. So I'm gonna go and I'm gonna select just one of the patches because, you know, I don't know, room. Now, yes. All right, so like the room 2, I'm gonna do a little bit of less mixing, make it less mix. There you go. That's your bass. All right. Now, of course, at the end of the day, it's completely up to you. Maybe you want to do a little bit more grid, a little bit less. You can change the curve to make it longer, which could be cool for a kick sidechain. In this case, I'm just gonna leave it right there, and I'm gonna save the patch and upload to Patreon, and I'm gonna give you the link. Check the description so you can download the patch, and maybe I'm gonna call it bass starting or something like that. And that's it. You know how easy it was to make this, just to make a sound, just to make a bass with this plugin. Polysynth is just a fantastic synth. Okay, so let's just move on to the plucks. First I was gonna do a bell, but then it kind of changed my mind. I'm gonna do a pluck. So okay, so since I love squares, the square sound, the square waveform, I'm gonna do a square. So I want this pluck to be poly. So I'm gonna use the stack. I'm gonna stack voices. Now, whenever you stack voices, you can do a little bit of detuning right here. So I'm gonna go grab this and I'm gonna go to the pitch and I'm gonna move it by a lot. Now, maybe this is just too much. So what I like, and this is my opinion, of course, at the end of the day, it's completely up to you. I'm gonna do 100. 100 for me is just cool. Now, I want a square bass, and right now I don't know what I'm gonna get, but I know what I want. So I'm gonna do 5 voices on this one. For now, I'm just gonna set it right there, and I'm gonna go, I don't know, unison something. Okay, so I'm gonna go, and again, I want a square, so I'm gonna do a square, and I want a pluck with high frequencies, right? I want something right at the top. So I'm gonna go and do 2, and I'm gonna go and do 4, and this is in this case at the bottom. And again, since we are using making a polysynth, I'm gonna do 2, 2, and maybe that unison. All right, so okay, let's see what happens. I'm gonna lower the volume because we are using a stack. It's just gonna go up in volume, and I'm gonna lower the volume right there. So let's see what we get. All right, that's fine. That's what I want. Now, what happens if we use the sync? Ah, that's nice. Let's do a little bit more. I kind of like it right there. Or maybe a little bit more. Let's see what happens. There we go. Now this is number 2. All right, for me, that's cool. And now I'm gonna go to the other one, and I'm gonna do a sync again because we can. Now the blend of both, we get that, and it already sounds cool and with no effects. Okay, so of course we need to do a little bit more. Now I want to get a little bit more of this than this. This is way too low. I'm gonna go and get a little bit more of the highs. Now, of course, what we can do a little bit of a filter modulation. So I'm gonna go to the envelope generator. I'm gonna do right here. I'm gonna move it and kind of adjust the curve. And of course, we need to do something right here with the envelopes. For now, I'm just gonna go leave it there, leave it there. I'm gonna set no sustain. I want a little bit of release, and I'm gonna go and see what we get. I want something like that, something plucky. Now, whenever we go like that, it's just not that plucky anymore. I like that because we're gonna use effects. So if we make it super large, the effects are it's not gonna work that well. I want a little bit of sustain, and since we are using release right here, I want a little bit of release. All right, I'm gonna do a little bit of feedback to get something a bit more kind of a, let's say, I don't know, saturation, let's say. And okay. Now what we can do a little bit of movement, because I like the 2, this one, but I like the 4 as well. So I'm gonna go right here, maybe put it right there, and I'm gonna bring an envelope. So I'm gonna do ADSR. I'm gonna go right here. And what I want on this ADSR is just to go up and down between the 1 and the 2, because we can. So I'm gonna say this, I'm gonna go there, I'm gonna go there. And for now, again, I don't know what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna go and do a little bit of experimentation. Let's see what we get. So right now, with this envelope, it's just kind of staying more on the 5. So if I make it bigger, now I can make it mono just to get a glimpse of what we really get. I want something like that. And I'm gonna go back to poly. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna stay mono because since we have a plucky, like an arpeggio. Now, if you're playing chords, this is not gonna help. You're gonna need to make it poly. But in this case, since we are playing one key, one note at the time, this is just gonna work a little bit better. So we have everything in place. We have something, going from 1 and 2. We have our both oscillators with the voices. What else can we do? Well, let's do some, some processing on the on this one. So I'm gonna go and bring some EQ, some compression, a bit of chorus, and a little bit of reverb. Okay, some reverb, chorus, then compressor, and then a little bit of EQ. So let's see what we can do with this. I'm gonna go right here. Now, of course, since this is a Pluck, in my mind, I'm gonna go and put this arpeggio, and this is gonna be playing on the higher frequencies. So what I want to do, I don't want all the lows right here. I'm gonna go and then just cut them. Just gonna cut them, and I'm gonna do an aggressive cut. I want more of the highs. Now I want a little bit more presence, so between 3 and something, we're gonna get more presence, a little bit less of this, and maybe a tiny cut right here on the super highs, something like that. Notice that it's just a little bit noisy. Yeah, I would say noisy. It's like, it's this frequencies right here. Notice that this peak. So we are cutting it, just make it a little bit more consistent. Same thing with the compressor. I want to enhance the plucking. If I go with the threshold, we are not, kind of a clipping already, the compressor. I want, again, fast attack, slow release. This is gonna just, of course, increase in volume, and I'm gonna adjust it right here. Maybe I'm doing too much, I'm gonna do a little bit less. It's just a tiny bit, just to get a bit more of the peak. All right, so now it's time, to make it wider. I'm gonna do a little bit of chorus. Now this one introduces volume, so I'm gonna go down in volume, and I kind of like that. But maybe it's just too much, because now I'm gonna go and bring the reverb. Now, which reverb I'm gonna use? I'm not gonna waste a lot of time in just thinking. I'm gonna go and do a hall. And that sounds nice already. You know, it's a pluck. It's an arpeggio that goes at the top. Pretty simple. What else do you want? Okay, I'm gonna go and make this a more vintage arpeggio. And this is something cool that you get in a lot of plugins and something that we can do manually right here. I'm gonna go to classic LFO. I'm gonna make it a timed. I'm gonna make it maybe 1/4, and I'm gonna use a triangle. Now what I want to do a little bit of detuning. Now, of course, that sounds just crazy, right? So what we can do, we're gonna go down on the amount, and we want a little bit of movement. Just a little bit, you know? A little bit of detuning. Now, this is too much. This is acceptable. All right, so I think it sounds nice. Now, we could do a lot more things just to enhance it. Now, of course, at the end of the day, this depends on your track. Where are you putting this? If you want more release, just to make it larger, can you hear the tail? Has more tail. I can do it more plucky or less plucky. Oh, not there. Let me go there. There we go. I'm just making it an exponential. And it's just a different vibe, you know, just a different vibe. All right. Now, if you want, you can go up on the frequencies, on the cutoff, and just get a bit more highs. All right, so I think it sounds nice. Just a good start, right? Of course, I'm gonna give you the patch, so you can grab the patch and you can just make it better if you wish. All right. Okay, so this just could be a sound that I would use. Now, I'm gonna go and we're gonna start with the pads. And the main purpose of doing all of this is that I'm just creating sounds. You just watch me, maybe you can follow and see what I'm doing with the voices, with this, with the pitch, with the tuning, and you can reproduce. You can do the same thing at home, right? That's the whole point of this. That we are just practicing together. That's the whole point of the video. I already made a tutorial explaining how this works. All right, so let's do some pads. Yeah, making pads is fun. In this case, I'm gonna go and use a saw. I'm gonna say 8, and I want something lower right here at the bottom on the oscillator number 2. And for now, I'm just gonna keep it in the middle. Now, since these are some pads, of course, we need a little bit of more attack. And again, you need to really adjust this to your track. And this attack, this knob, it's very sensitive. So you're gonna need to really adjust it. Spend some time adjusting it. Now, I'm going to do full sustain. It's going to disable the decay, and I'm going to do a little bit of release. I don't know how it's going to sound. Of course, it sounds like crap, but we're going to make it better, much better. Now, of course, we can mess with the voices. I'm going to go and make it 3, just for fun. And I'm going to do a little bit of detuning, and I'm going to go to the pitch. And remember what I like to do? I like to move it, and then we'll go manually here and adjust it. So again, since we are using many voices, maybe we're going to get an increase in volume. Already sounds like a pad. I want to do a little bit more cutting. It's a bit too aggressive for me. And I'm going to go to the number 1, which is higher pitch. And I'm going to go and do a little bit more unison. I want to spread the voices. That's nice, That's nice. I'm gonna maybe lower the volume right here, the gain. Okay. So now, these are the lows. I'm gonna do 2. And this is gonna give us a very big bass, which sometimes, depends on your track, is just not a good idea. So you're going to need to do some EQing to cut a little bit of the lows, because it's going to be in between of the bass and the kick and everything else. Again, everything we are doing, we are just learning and creating patches. But we never know if it's going to fit on your track. You need to make adjustments. And a lot of people just, maybe complain or just criticize presets. But that's fine, that's fine. But in my case, how I use presets, I just maybe find a preset I like that I know it's not going to fit on my track because they never fit. And I don't toggle, through a million presets. I just get something, with the vibe I want. And I start messing with the envelopes and changing some things. That's how you really use patches. You don't start, toggling through all the presets and try to find something that fits. That just never works. It never works. You find some sound that you like and you modify a little bit of what's going on to fit it to your track. That's why it's so important to learn how the synthesizer works, because now you can create your own sounds, but you also have some other example sounds you can learn from, or maybe you can reuse because you now know how to change it and fit it to your track. That's the point, right? Okay, so right now the pad sounds cool. It's a bit too big for me, so I'm gonna go a bit less resonance. I'm gonna go right here at the top, and I'm gonna go and lower this. Now, of course, now it sounds too dark. Now, the thing is that whenever we use the envelope generator, we need to mess with this, and it's just not very visual. So sometimes what you can do, you can bring your own, since we can, of course, you can bring your own ADSR. You can visually see, the envelope, and you can actually see the movement right here, which is kind of important, right? So, okay, so I'm going to go and just, do the envelope. I'm going to maybe, I don't know, I'm going to do more attack, more decay, more sustain, decay, something like there, more decay, and more release. And I'm going to leave it in poly because we are just, playing chords, so playing many keys. So the idea is that instead of using the envelope generator, we use this one. So I'm going to go and I'm going to say that I want to move the filter something like this with this motion. Okay. I don't know if I totally dig it. I'm going to go maybe there. A little bit more sustain. Like it a little bit more decay. A little bit less release. And I want a little bit more of the bride. That's fine. Just a little bit, it's a pad. It needs to be in the background. Most of the times. Alright. So I like the pad. It sounds cool. But I want to do a little bit more. What I would like to do is to add a tremolo, kind of a tremolo. We already have a plugin to do this, but I want to do it right here because, we can. So I'm going to go and bring a classic LFO, just a classic LFO. And on this one, I'm going to go and select, I don't know, something like this. All right. And I'm going to go and say that I want, I don't know, 1/8. And what I want to do, I want to modulate the output of the plugin. Now I'm going to go and do it maybe to the out right here. Something like that. I'm not going to modify what this one. We could do this one, but this one again is the gain that will feed to the effects. So maybe, we can try and see what happens. So now, of course, this is just moving up and down. Maybe I could do a little bit more so I can make it a little bit more noticeable and we can change it. So something like that. Now it's bipolar. I don't want bipolar. I just want this. And if I play it, of course, I need to play the pads. Fine. It's kind of a tremolo, but it has its own vibe. Now, of course, it's just too aggressive, right? But we can tone it down. And we still get that movement. All right, I like it. Maybe a little bit less sustain. Now, the thing is with the attack and this, this attack and everything, you know, right here, in this case, is a bit sensitive. So notice right here, and the difference right here is a lot. And right now, from 50% and less, the difference is just too much. I'm gonna leave it right there at 50%. Of course, you will need to adjust this to fit it to your track. That's how it works. I'm gonna do a little bit more of a attack. Yeah, it was too much. There we go. Okay. So I dig it. Let's, let's enhance this with a little bit of processing. Now, of course, sometimes, and this happens a lot with the pads, and let me bring the dynamics. You need to control the dynamics because the volume goes up and down and it's just massive because it's a pad. So you're going to need to do a little bit of compression to kind of control what's going on. And notice it's just pretty wild. So I'm going to go lower on the gain right here. Notice that it reduces the gain. Now I'm going to go over there, do maybe a little bit of that, and it's already compressing. Maybe I'm doing too much. And what I want to do a not so fast release and a medium attack, something like there. We don't want to super compress it. We just want to smooth it out. You know, it's just like easing everything. That's the whole point. And I want to lo-fi this. So I'm going to go and bring a plugin I like. I could use the one we get on Bitwig, but I like this one a little bit better because it's easier to use. And you know what? It's free, so you can go and get it. It's called Crush by Tritic. They have a pro version. I have the pro version. It's fantastic. But this one is simple, and again, it's free. And this one, it's a bit crusher. So what I like to do, you can blend the dry and the wet. I like to go all the way down on the dry and just get the wet because I don't do a lot of this. I just do a tiny part. Now, by default, this is gonna filter the high frequencies. Now, since we are doing a lot of filtering, we don't hear a lot, but I don't want to filter anything with this. You get this because this, it's gonna get nasty. So if you have filter, you can just filter that. Of course, that's why you get the dry and the wet. In this case, I'm just doing wet. Now, I don't want to do that. I just want to do a little bit, maybe 10%, a little bit of crush. This is the crush. Of course, it's too much. Just want to do a little bit. Notice that gives us that noise, kind of a vintagey vibe. And I'm gonna do a little bit of drive, maybe 8. And now I'm gonna do a little bit of filtering. All right, without, more vintage, right? Okay, so we're gonna do the obvious, and you don't have to use a chorus every single time. I'm just doing it because we are soloing this, and this is just gonna make it bigger, right? And it sounds nice when it's bigger. Now, since this is a vintage kind of a pad, and we are using an emulation of the chorus from the Juno, it fits, right? Now lower the volume because this adds a little bit of volume. What else? What else can we do? We need a reverb. Now, this already sounds good. I'm gonna go and bring a reverb. Now, of course, I'm just gonna make it I'm gonna use the smooth verb. This one is super big. I don't want all of that. I just want a little bit. And I'm gonna go maybe down this one. Something like that. And notice that we are getting that vintagey vibe. Now I can do a little bit more filtering so we can... There we go. That's a bit better. A little bit less resonance. Now, this is a bit too aggressive right now for me. So I'm gonna go and do a little bit less. Because we want a little bit. That's fine. I dig it. Of course, again, this I'm gonna save it as a patch, and this is gonna go to you, so you can grab it and you can mess with this later. So I think I'm done. I'm gonna go and give it a little bit more unison and a little bit more unison and see if it sounds a little bit better. Because I dig it, but you know, there's always room for enhancement. Okay. Cool. So we could do some EQing right here. I'm not gonna do it. Just gonna leave that to you. Now there's something that we never do. I'm gonna show you, and it's the output of the plugging. And it's something you need to check. Whenever you make patches, sometimes maybe you notice when you buy a sample pack that each patch has different volumes, and maybe you're just toggling and one sounds really loud and the other one sounds very, you know, quiet. And it's because they don't do this work. I do it with every preset pack I do. I just go right here, check the peak, and I try to match the volume to a maximum level. There are a lot of you know, meters right here. I like to use this one, and I like to keep it on -18. And notice it's already going all the way to the top, which is not good. This is super loud. I always wanted to keep it from -3 and between -3 and -3. So I'm gonna reset. I'm gonna lower the volume. I'm gonna reset and I'm gonna go hold. And if you like to do patches or presets, it's always a good idea to adjust, you know, the volume and everything to be kind of always the same. So you can toggle and, you know, always to get the same volume. All right, so that's it. You know, I wanted to show that. It's okay. So that's it. You know, you get a pad. We get some cool plugs that we can even, you know, make it bigger right here. That's a bit better. And then we have some cool vase. Now, all of this, I'm gonna go and create a post on Patreon so you can go and get each single patch. Maybe I'm gonna give you two versions, one you know, without enhancements and another one with enhancements. Now, you know, this version and another one with enhancements. Now, at the end of the day, we are just doing some practicing, and these are just very standard and normal sounds. Just a plug, just a pad, just a bass. Maybe on the next one, we're gonna do a little bit more crazy, or just, you know, create a different pad and add more modulators just to create different vibes. All right. It's okay. So hopefully you like this. Remember, you know, again, to check Patreon to support the channel on Patreon if you can. You get preset packs and, you know, things every month, and you get, of course, early access to everything I do, way early access. And all right. So see you on the next one.